What's going on, dudes and dudettes? So, yes, Keenan Allen, the main wide receiver for the LA Chargers, over the weekend signed a 4-year, $80 million plus deal with them to stay on. So it's an extension. He was going into his final year of this deal right now after they extended him off his rookie deal, and of course they want to keep him around, be that veteran presence going into his 30s, and hopefully he could still produce at a high level. I think he can for the first or the next couple years, but maybe after that might look to trade him. It might be hard because he'll be averaging 20 plus million a year, but you never know. A team could still want him just in case. So yeah, it's good to have this guy shored up. They still have to worry about their tight end, a couple other spots as well, even their other defensive end, but we'll see how those go, and maybe some people get traded during the season depending on how bad it goes, maybe not, but yeah, it should be very cool. And then the Pac-12 recently came out saying that they have found a new way to be able to do daily COVID tests, but be able to find out the results in like 15 minutes. So they're saying that if they're able to get that system throughout all the schools and be able to get it on a consistent basis right now, that the Pac-12 could start playing football around November, and maybe they'll be able to finish up in January, almost into February, and maybe be able to play in like the Rose Bowl or something with the Big Ten at some point after that. But yeah, it should be very interesting. It seems like it's some positive news towards that USC playing at least this season, but you never know. It could be a flash in the pan, or it's just really nothing right now. So hoping for the best to be able to see USC play this year, but we'll have to wait and see. And then last week it said that the campus of Duke had around like 29 cases of the COVID virus. As of right now, they haven't mentioned any athletes or the basketball players, but from what I've seen in videos, they've been pretty precautious right now. They did have a kind of like a big pep rally recently for social injustice, and that probably could have spiked up some numbers, but as of right now, it seems like the basketball players are good so far. So we'll monitor that situation as it continues. And then yes, the Lakers got the Game 2 victory against the Houston Rockets. I say it's pretty much all thanks to me, because I was watching most of the game, and yes, because I was watching, the Lakers went up by 20, but then because I still got greedy and continued to watch, then the Houston Rockets went up by 5. So I said, you know what, that's it. I'm done seeing the downfall. I'm not going to be here if the Lakers lose game 2. So I stopped watching towards the end of the third quarter and the fourth quarter. And of course, the Lakers come out with the victory. I was happy to see that. Too bad I couldn't witness it live, but glad to see that it still happened. LeBron went off, as you can see in a lot of these highlights, getting lob dunks and crazy athletic dunks still when he's 35 years old. And he had a nice block as well that I didn't get, but main thing is that him and Anthony Davis once again played very well. Davis ended up getting around 34 points, I believe, in a double-double. LeBron with his stats, almost 30 points, had like almost a triple-double as well, what he normally does, rebounds and assists. So yeah, it's very good to see that when they put up the stats like they're supposed to, then they do get the victory. It's tough in today's NBA because everyone's a better shooter, that you could have a 20-point lead in the second half and still end up being down 7 going into the fourth quarter or around then. So it's nothing's ever guaranteed with the way these guys shoot the threes, and Houston is definitely the better team at that right now, left in the playoffs. And yeah, should be very interesting going forward, see what can happen. But yeah, hopefully it doesn't go to 7 games, because Clippers look like they might be able to handle Denver, but get into talking about that a little bit later in this video. And a couple of USC Trojans that are in the NFL trying to make teams right now when the rosters are being cut down to 53, because this is going to be the start of the NFL week right now on Thursday. So Porter Gustin actually made the 53-man roster, the ex-defensive end for USC, so that's great for Cleveland. And then the wide receiver Deontay Burnett from a couple years back, he made the practice squad for the Philadelphia Eagles, so still staying out east. So hopefully these guys can get some playing time, and hopefully I'll be able to talk about them later in the season as well. And yes, the NBA playoffs have been underway, still going on in the second round. I did get all my picks correct on this NBA playoff pick'em thing. So I got the Lakers against Houston, and then Clippers against Denver, and then I also had Boston against Toronto, and the upset of Miami over Indiana, and then they're playing Milwaukee. But my finals for pretty much all of them might be in jeopardy because I had Denver beating the Clippers just because I thought they would get a lot of their more guys healthy at this time, but it seems that they're not. They did win one game so far, but we'll see how that goes. I still have a Lakers-Denver final, Western Conference final, and then I had a Milwaukee-Toronto final. I went with the higher seeds, but if I knew that Kyle Lowry and Pascal Siakam were going to freaking suck so bad this round for Toronto, I probably would have picked Boston anyways, but even Milwaukee too has been a disappointment as usual, and Giannis, the best player according to a lot of NBA people, is most likely not going to play today's game, so they could lose, and Miami advances to the Eastern Conference Finals, so it'll be very interesting, but we'll see what happens the rest of the way of these playoffs. And then USC quarterback commit Jake Garcia played for his first time at Valdosta, Georgia over this weekend, and it was a pretty tough game just because his offensive line sucks for him, but he did have 2 long plays and ended up finishing with like around 300 plus passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Obviously could have been a lot better, but it did end in a comeback victory for him and his school, and that's just the main thing, is be able to have him get more tape and being able to get more playing time, especially since California high schools aren't being allowed to play, especially football right now. So he had to go all the way out there. And a lot of people thought it would be trouble because he's closer to University of Miami, who wants him, but apparently he's still not interested in them, still committed to USC as of this second, and whenever the football season ends down there in Georgia, he should enroll early at USC in 2021. So hopefully that still goes as the plan. USC has 2 top quarterbacks that could fight out for the future spot after Slovis leaves, so that's all I care about. And then we recently did with a couple of my family members and Linda's brother this last weekend for our first fantasy draft all together for football. I always push it to late as possible because I don't like to do a draft and then you get players injured like back in July or August. So luckily I knew the season would start this Thursday, had it on Sunday, and so far I've been so good with injuries the past couple days. But yeah, it was a great draft. I mean, of course Yahoo always ranks me low whenever I finish a draft because I pick guys maybe a little bit sooner than I should, but because I know of how good they're going to be, and that's just how I do, and I usually finish within the top 3, whether I'm playing for the championship or playing for 3rd place. I'm always in there, so I guess Yahoo doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. But yeah, it's always fun to see that grade and have a little bit of motivation to finish good, and we'll see how this season goes. Should be very interesting with COVID and everything like that. And Bleacher Report, the main app I go to for sports news, did a new mock draft for everything for the 2021 NFL draft coming up. It's a little bit more updated than the one the ones I did last week for Chargers and USC players. But because this was only like 3 rounds and there's only a handful of players for both teams, I decided to just mix them all together instead of just making a separate video. I wouldn't be able to talk that much. But yes, so for the Chargers, their first 3 rounds. In the first round, they picked an offensive tackle, Alex Leatherwood, out of Alabama, who I would have had them picking this year if he would have decided to not play college football this season. But at least they somehow get him again in the middle of the first round, which is, semi-important because they're picking around 14, which means they finish like 7-9 or 8-8 once again with the freaking Chargers. So that's what I dislike the most, that either they barely made the playoffs and are going to lose first round, or they just missed the playoffs as usual. Just very typical for freaking Chargers fans. But in the second round, they get a safety in Jacoby Stevens out of LSU. So he's a proven winner, won a national championship last year, and safety is a position that the Chargers obviously need depth at, just in case Derwin James somehow goes down again after he's almost pretty much missed 2 seasons in his first couple years due to injury, which sucks, but that's why you shore up that position. And then in the third round, they get LeBron Ray, I believe his name was, from Alabama. He's a defensive end / outside linebacker. Definitely a position they'll need some more depth at, depending what they do with Melvin Ingram, whether they trade him or he goes off in free agency. And just to have a lot of guys at that position will benefit your defense, especially for Gus Bradley, defensive coordinator. And then honorable mentions for USC, they only had 2 guys selected in these 3 rounds. They were both in the second round. Of course, it's Jay Tufele, the top defensive tackle from USC. He's going to Miami in this draft, which is good for him because, yeah, he goes in the second round, less money, but he also has a greater chance to start. And he goes to a defensive head coach, and Brian Flores as well, so should definitely be able to play very well there. And then Elijah Vera Tucker, the top offensive lineman from USC, goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think in the last video, Talanoa Hufanga went here, the safety, but this time the Pittsburgh Steelers get the guard Elijah Vera Tucker, who should definitely help them out with a couple of guys getting up there in age and maybe looking to retire soon. So yeah, that's how the cookie crumbles right there with the 2021 mock drafts. We'll see if any other interesting ones come out. I'm pretty sure they will after this first week of the NFL. Hopefully it goes well. Hopefully there's no canceled games. So far everything looks copacetic, so can't wait for Thursday to be able to enjoy that Kansas City Houston Texan matchup. So thanks for watching, people. Like and subscribe, comment down below, let me know what y'all think. Have a great rest of your day.